Got to cancel.
Welcome, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast, the college offseason podcast, where you could say we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. So before we get into the main topic of today's show, I just want to say that I heard the most, well, damn, didn't see that coming news before we hopped on. So Bronny James decides he wants to play his college ball at USC. Not going to lie, I didn't see that coming. I mean, does he even know what it's like to live in Los Angeles? Or, does Isaiah Collier even want him on the team? Or, let's be honest, I don't even know why USC would want him. I mean, the only reason he's rated so high is because he's LeBron's kid, right? Yeah, totally didn't see that coming at all. Matt, what do you think?
I feel so bad for this kid. It's not funny.
No, same. If those who don't know, this was complete sarcasm. Complete sarcasm.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine. I mean, remember Michael Jordan Jr.? That was enough pressure, and that was at Central Florida. I mean, you're talking about a team that was in my top 10 last week of college basketball teams, and you're already LeBron James's kid on a top 10 team in the eyes of a lot of people. That's supposed to be the number one team in the Pac-12. Oof. And you can't win either way. You're either going to be not good enough because of LeBron, or you're going to be not good enough because of the team you're on. There's just no winning for this poor kid. I feel awful for him. He could average 20 points a game in college, and everyone would just be like, not his dad. Not his dad.
And what's crazy, though, is as an avid fan of recruiting, that is the quickest way to get under my skin, is to make that idiotic statement that he's only rated that high because of who his dad is.
Yeah.
I want y'all to ask me this question right now. When has that ever been the case? I mean, you act like him and Arch Manning are like the first legacies we've had in sports.
Yeah.
I mean, the only legacies that got hyped up, I'd say they worked out pretty good. Ken Griffey Jr. turned out to be a pretty good player. Only one of the best players of my generation. No big deal. Jelly Bean Joe Bryant's kid, I'd say he turned out pretty good, as we got the poster in the background and a dog named after him. I'd say it turned out pretty good. So yeah, that is the most absolutely asinine, idiotic statement I've ever heard. He's only rated that high because of who his dad. No. Obviously, there's some validity. Michael Jordan's kids weren't rated that high. Not to mention
Central Florida.
Yeah, he was a 3-star recruit. I mean, not to pick on Kyan Anthony, but he's Carmelo's kid. He's not rated that high. I mean, though I do think he's a good player, but he's not rated that high. He's not rated as high as Bronny James. Oh, Bronny James didn't deserve to be in a McDonald's All-American, because he's LeBron. Yes, he did. Have you watched that kid at all? That kid, first of all, plays defense at an elite level. He's got a lot to like. He just maybe not put up the numbers that some of these kids do, but he lets the game come to him. He's a smart basketball player with a lot of intangibles that any team in the country could use. Stop the hate. It's stupid. The hate on his dad is bad enough, let alone the hate on him. Jesus.
Uh-oh. Bean's got something to say.
Bean does have something to say. What you got? What you got to say, Bean?
I hate LeBron James more than I hate Spencer Bennett.
That's impressive. That is impressive, Bean.
Bronny James is overrated. I'm going to make him lose the national championship game in heartbreaking fashion.
Steph Curry is my favorite player of all time. Not even the guy you're named after? That's crazy.
LeBron James is lucky if he is top 10 all time. He plays in the softest league imaginable.
Okay, Skip. I guess I didn't know my dog is now like the reincarnation of Skip Bayless. That's wild.
He's channeling him from afar.
Bean is who Skip gets his inspiration from. Let's be honest about this.
He summons him through some kind of magic mirror, and Bean's just like, you must do a take about how overrated Patrick Mahomes is.
You must he must do a take on how Dak Prescott was better than Patrick Mahomes last year.
There is only Dak Prescott. We them boys.
Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in all of football. CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver. Yeah, he's got to tell it all.
You will make Shannon Sharp's head explode. He knows what he did at the Super Bowl in the 90s.
Well, apparently Shannon Sharp wasn't very good at football because he had to stop playing at 35, remember?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
It's like you average 2 points a game in high school basketball. You simmer down there, buddy.
Shannon Sharp is a Hall of Fame tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a gold jacket. What do you have in football? Nothing. You didn't even play high school football, my guy. Why are you making this comment to him?
Yep.
Skip. But enough of imitating other shows. We have our own show to do. Anyways, the main topic of today's podcast is, with the college football transfer portal officially, I say this with bunny ears, closed, as in, I say closed because you can't enter the portal anymore. But obviously, players are still committing, but a lot of the big names are already set in place. Matt and I are going to give our top 5. Matt's going to give his top 5 impact players that went to a new team in the transfer portal. And I'm going to give the top 5 teams that I think benefited the most from the transfer portal. So without further ado, because the transfer portal is all about the individual player first, I think it's only right that Matt go ahead and dive into his top 5 first. So without further ado, take it away, my friend.
All right, Les. Well, the first thing I did when I was working on this list is I looked in the mirror and I said, we've talked about Bear Alexander. We've talked about Shadur Sanders. We've talked about Travis Hunter so much. So the first thing you're going to notice here, and this is no disrespect, we just talked about him so much, I was like, no more USC, no more Colorado. We're going to let the Pac-12 sit for a while. They know what they're capable of. They're going to have good teams. And I'm going to talk about some guys that we really haven't had the chance just yet to focus on. So for starters, I have what I'm calling the other 5. I'm going to breeze through these guys really quick. But these are guys who, if there was a top 10 list, they would be my top 10. So these are the lower 5 guys on my list. And I've got Dennis Leary, quarterback, moving from NC State to Kentucky.
Devin Leary.
Devin Leary,
yeah.
I am autocorrect. It doesn't like Devin. It always changes to Dennis.
Well, I don't know which name is better. I feel like they're both kind of corny names.
Yeah.
Devin, yeah. Dennis. Oh, wait, my friend's dad's name is Dennis. That's awkward.
Look what you've done.
I know. I'm a terrible person.
But
my name is Les. You know, whose name is Les? What a lame name.
Les Emerson, Les Baxter.
Les Paul, Les Miles.
See, it's a very popular name for old timers. You're a trendsetter. You're bringing.
I'm just 30 years too late and bringing it back.
You're bringing it back old school. But you know what's not corny? Liam Cohen's offense at Kentucky, and now they've got a quarterback who can run 35 touchdowns last year. Guy who I think is going to help Kentucky contend as Tennessee rebuilds a little bit in the SEC East. But of course, it all runs through Georgia. I said contend, not win. There's a key difference there. They can win 5 games and still lose 2. That's contending. That's not winning.
That's not even why I'm looking at you like this, actually.
Why?
Tennessee's not rebuilding.
Well, they did lose Hendon Hooker.
I mean, Joe Milton looked pretty good in that bowl game.
Does,
and of course,
he does.
And even if he struggles, you got Nico coming off the bench. Or as I like to call him, pajamas.
Pajamas. I guess retooling would have been the more operative word there.
Yeah.
Let's go with
let's go with retooling.
In case that retooling doesn't go as well as they think, Kentucky can contend. And even then, worst case scenario, I think they're the 3rd best team around there. Then we got Ernest Hausman coming from Nebraska into Michigan. Michigan's always a good defensive team. You're adding another great player there. And then one less I know that's near and dear to your heart, A.D. Mitchell, wide receiver, comes in from Georgia to Texas. Going to be a huge part of that offense. And another team we've talked about ad nauseum, but a move we didn't discuss. Monty Montgomery, former hard-hitting Louisville linebacker coming into Ole Miss. I really like that move because we focus a lot on their quarterback and offense, but he was a really good, hard hustle guy at Louisville. And in the SEC West, you need all those guys you can get if you're going to try to stop some of these offenses. And
100%.
finally, Carson Strong going from Ball State to UCLA to replace Zach Charbonnet in that offense. I'm I'm really excited to see what he does. A nice big physical runner for a Pac-12 team that I don't think another retooling team there. And now, without yes, Les, do you have something you want to say?
Before we continue, I wanted to say, in honor of the Kentucky Derby, because Matt and I are Louisville natives, I
That's
do want
true.
to say that if I had to put odds on that Carson Strong was going to get mentioned on this podcast, I think the odds would have been better than Mages to win the Kentucky Derby.
It's true. It's true. You know me too well. Just like how you're going to react when I give you my number 5 overall pick here, Les, because
All right, let's get to it.
this is a guy I've actually seen play live, and I'm very excited for him to come to start anew, even at the expense of, well, whatever you want to call Indiana's football program. And that's Deshaun McCullough going from IU to Oklahoma. I was surprised when he committed to Oklahoma. I really thought he was going to be a shoe in for Notre Dame with the way with his heritage and the coaching there and all that stuff. But I think with Brett Venables, he has a chance to be one of the defensive players of the year in the Big 12. I think that he could be like the one thing that keeps that defense afloat. He's a great piece. He's a leader, and I'm just really excited to see what he does out there. So I think that a guy like Brett Venables, who's made stars of defensive players before, especially up there, I think he's got a good shot to be the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to be a key cog in a defense that was sagging last year and may improve this year. There's just too many questions on the offense for me to really be on board with Oklahoma, though. We've discussed that many times. But I love Deshaun McCullough. That's why he's my number 5 pick. I think he's one of the best defensive players in the country. And I think with Brent Venables, a defensive minded coach, allowing him to explore his talents further, he's going to be a very solid piece and a defensive player of the year candidate in that conference. Moving on to number 4, we're going to go to the Big Ten for this one. Dante Cephas, and I hope I'm saying that right, going from Kent State to Penn State. And that's just really fun to say, number 1, but that's not the real reason. Les, you know Penn State is always solid defensively. There are very few seasons where we talk about a bad Penn State defense. They also have an incredibly deep running back room this year. They've got some talent in there, and they have a 5-star quarterback in Drew Allar. And, those things combined, they're great. They're good. You can establish the run. You don't have to score a lot with a great defense. But once you establish the run, we always go with the Madden principle, which is run the football. Then you can establish the passing game later in the drive. But if you're going to establish the passing game later in the drive, you've got to have a really good pass catcher. And that's why I'm excited to see what Cephas will do in that Penn State offense, because I think it's the perfect opportunity for him to thrive. I think with the way they'll set the run up and not have to be super reliant on a high quantity of scoring, that he's going to have a really good season going over the top, even against those tough, and I'm going to be honest, tough Big Ten defenses and tough Big Ten quarters. Now, number 3, Les, a team you're very high on to the point where you've been arguing on Twitter and YouTube simultaneously with this fan base about their place in the world. Well, you always say that the Alabama dynasty is over. And one of the things about the Alabama dynasty that they always had, that Georgia is now taking on, besides all the defenses, is there were always a crap ton of really good wide receivers on those Alabama teams. The depth there was just incredible. And now Georgia is emulating that with my number 3 picks in a way. Ra Thomas coming from Mississippi State, and Dominic Leggett, a highly underrated player coming in from Mizzou. The SEC is starting to gravitate towards Georgia. And those 2 guys, you're combining them with Brock Bowers, and you're telling me that that offense is going to be just as, if not more, explosive than last year? He had 846 yards last season, 71 catches, 71 yards per game, and then you just oh crap. I had my train of thought going so well. He had Lovett had 800 yards plus. Ra Thomas was a good player. It doesn't matter that they lost Adonai Mitchell or DH. They've got a hell of a roster there going on, and you've also got Lad McConkey coming back too. So they've got a deep receiving core. Those 2 guys are veteran weapons. They're good weapons. Like I said, these guys may be on a couple of programs you don't think of when you think of the SEC, but they played in the SEC, which means if they got 800 yards against some of those defenses, they're a pretty good player. So Ra Thomas and Dominic Levitt coming from the other SEC schools into the Georgia Bulldogs. Move number 3. Really impressed with that move. I think, like you said, that's why Georgia is going to be the team to beat going into the future. At number 2, a move that I really liked when it happened. I'm very excited to see what happens, and that's Sam Hartman going to Notre Dame. For some reason, that just really works for me. I mean, we know he has nearly 13,000 yards in his career and the ACC record for touchdowns. But, I think if you give him a team like Notre Dame, which feels just like it feels like you're going from a car that was pretty good, like you're going from a Camry in Wake Forest to a Rolls Royce with Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. You've got a really good defensive team around you. You've got better offensive weapons. Yeah, the schedule is a lot tougher, but you're a proven leader. You're a veteran leader who's been in some tough spots, who knows how to sling that pigskin, and that makes a world of difference to me. I really like that Sam Hartman move. I think he's going to play out really well wherever he goes. And number 1, a move that I really liked because it proved a point we made last year, which is, sometimes the big classes don't always pan out. And that's a guy who was part of the great TAMU haul of last season, who's now leaving, in Denver Harris, a really talented young cornerback who was coming from Texas A&M to the LSU Tigers. And I know I have to praise LSU, but I've got to praise LSU where I can, because this is a great move. This guy Denver Harris hasn't seen much action. He was suspended, but now, I mean, the LSU is the defending champion of the SEC West, and I think this team is even better just based on raw talent and abilities like they're getting with Denver Harris coming in. This dude is going to be a playmaker. This dude is an athletic freak. He can be a ball hawk, and now he's in a situation that seems a little bit more stable than what was going on in College Station, and I'm really excited to see how he slots in with an already really athletic LSU defense. I think he can be a difference maker if they want to have a chance to upset Georgia in that SEC championship game if they both get there. So those are my top 5. I'm going to go through one more time just in case everybody at home wasn't paying attention. Number 5, Dasan McCullough coming from IU to Oklahoma. Number 4, Dante Cephas leaving Kent State and coming to Penn State. Number 3, Ra Thomas leaving Mississippi State, and Dominic Levitt leaving Mizzou to both come and submit an already explosive Georgia team. Number 2, Sam Hartman leaving Wake Forest to become a Notre Dame Fighting Irishman. And number 1, Denver Harris, extremely athletic defensive ball hawk, leaving Texas A&M to venture into the bayou of LSU.
So before I get started on mine, I do want to address a couple of yours. One, I have a gut feeling that this is not going to be the last time we talk about Denver Harris on this podcast.
No.
Just going to throw that out there. Number 2, and I want to talk about your statement about Georgia because you made a very good point. This is no longer the Georgia that we are used to seeing where they stack the I formation and just run it down your throat 4 yards, a cloud of dust. This is a modern offense. And I think that's just the nature of the new style of football that we're seeing. And now even that the SEC teams are adapting it, it's just only getting more exciting to watch. And then, of course, you add those 2 weapons. That was one thing I noticed about the last couple of years in Georgia's team is that they're spreading it out. They're running a more modern offense. And, of course, when you bring in 2 receivers like that, like Matt said, have SEC experience, it's only going to work out in their favor. Another thing, as for your number 5 pick, only because the fans expect me to say this, Jalen Ford is going to win Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, so we're clear. I had to say that.
That was coming, and I was totally fine with that because I'm like, I'm gonna have to. He's gonna talk about Jalen Ford for about 5 minutes after I get done with Dasan McCullough.
If I wanted to, I could start a Jalen Ford fan podcast where I just talk about nothing but Jalen Ford.
You just follow him around with the camera. Hey, Jalen, how's things going today?
Hey, Jalen. Hey, Jalen. Hey, Jalen. Like, make him hate me by the end of it.
And Les, the amazing thing is too. I was thinking about the guys who I didn't talk about. Like, I basically was like, the people are tired of hearing about Colorado. I'm not going to talk about Colorado. And then just before the podcast, they get like their 4th guy transferring in from Florida State on the defensive side of the ball. And USC gets a cornerback transfer just like minutes before we start the podcast. And I'm like, I'm not talking about you two. Stop it.
Well, that's okay because I am going to talk about them a little bit. So,
Okay.
but
Just
I think that's what the fans have come to expect is that kind of like how I started the show with the most well no shit Sherlock news of all time. I think that's one of our dynamics of the show is Matt tells you about the people you're not thinking of, and I'm talking about how even though we are thinking of the moves that I bring up, why maybe some people don't understand the extent of how good this is.
that's a good
So
way of putting it. Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. I think that's why our dynamic is so good. You and I, in a lot of ways, are polar opposites, but it works. Opposites
It does.
attract. We are yin and yang.
I'm the mid-major guy. You're the big school guy, and that's how it is.
Exactly. So, anyways, just for time constraints, I think it's time for me to officially start my top five.
Go ahead, buddy.
And so, number five, and I'd like to think that I went quality over quantity with this one, and it's the Michigan Wolverines. They only got 8 commits from the portal, but it's the areas that they improved in that puts them on the spot. They landed 3 offensive linemen, Ladarius Henderson from Arizona State, Miles Hinton and Drake Nugent from Stanford. And those guys plugged into that line unit. Now I gotta say Michigan has the best offensive line in college football, at least on paper. So that's ultimately why I put Michigan at the spot. And of course, going from guys that protect the quarterback to guys that get after the quarterback, they added a couple pass rushers. And of course, that never hurts. So
No,
that's
never
why
mind.
I never at all. Yeah. So I think that's why I have Michigan at this number 5 spot. Now, number four is going to surprise a lot of people. I have the Louisville Cardinals at number 4.
Ooh.
And, as much as I said that it wasn't going to happen, Jeff Brom has done work since he's been coming home.
Yes, he has.
At the time of this recording, they have 20 commits through the portal, which is tied with Indiana and SMU for third most. And what really stands out to me is that he targeted specific areas. He really went after defensive backs and wide receivers. On the defensive backside, Marcus Washington from Georgia, of course, is the top ranked player that's committed. But as a Texas fan, as I'm wearing Duke gear, but y'all know I'm a fan of both. Everybody knows that. Everybody that watches the podcast knows that. Devin Neal comes in from Baylor. I can tell you firsthand that's a good move. And of course, the guy with one of the coolest names in college football, Storm Duck from Penn State. Those moves stand out pretty good. And of course, at the wide receiver position, 4 wide receiver commits through the portal. Jamari Thrash from Georgia State is the top ranked. But let me tell you, Kevin Coleman from Jackson State, that's going to be the one to watch out for. Because Matt, I know, yeah, you and I know, watched a lot of Jackson State tapes, a lot of Jackson State clips and games. That's a good one.
It's a huge one.
And of course, to top it off, they got their QB1 and Jack Plummer from California. Pretty solid.
Pretty good.
I think he does a lot better in a Jeff Brom system. But anyways, that wraps up my number 4. And going from 2 picks that might have surprised you a little bit to 3 picks that you're probably like, well, no shit. These are the guys. So my number 3 team is the LSU Tigers. And if you don't respect my ranking on there, they're also the 3rd ranked team according to 24/7 with an 80 grade for their portal class. They have 12 commits, 10 of which are on defense. And of course, one of my favorite players in the portal that Matt literally just talked about, Denver Harris. And of course, the Longhorn fan in me has to say good luck to Ovia Gofu, who also transferred in. Best of luck to you. Great player, great young man. I wish him nothing but the best. I'm not like most fans that just want to bash players for leaving.
Well, I don't get why people are like that. I mean, people have lives and reasons that you could never begin to understand. So just let it go. You don't have to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you so much," but you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Well, if I did everything that people wanted me to do, I don't know where I'd be, to be completely honest. I don't really know where I was going with that statement. I guess the point being is you can't do what everyone else wants you to do. That's just stupid.
Yeah, you got to be free to be yourself.
Yes. How dare you make a decision based on what a complete stranger doesn't want you to do? How could you? Why could you be so selfish?
Are you horrible like that?
No, anyways, yeah, I think people are just miserable and they need to leave these guys alone. But anyways, now for number 2. And it's a team that has a fan base that has been jumping on our podcast bandwagon as of recently in the USC Trojans, which shout out to you guys. I appreciate the love that the fan base is giving our show. Absolutely. And I promise you, your all's love is not what is impacting this ranking at all. You all, they're making some serious noise.
It's nice,
course,
but it's secondary.
As we've said on many shows before, year 1 of the Riley era, they sold the house on the offensive side of the ball. And now in year 2, they sold the house on defense, which after watching several key games down the stretch, that's what needed to happen. Of course, Bear Alexander, Christian Roland Wallace, Mason Cobb, Jack Sullivan all initially took that defense to a new level. And literally right before we jumped on the podcast, like Matt alluded to, they landed another defensive back from Bama and Traquan Fagans. So, I mean, they're selling the house on defense. I mean, and for good measure, they added Marshawn Lloyd from South Carolina and Dorian Singer on offense. And it's like, they didn't really need more weapons, but like, they got them anyway. Got them anyway. So, I mean, yeah, with that offense and then mixed with that defense, this puts USC in some serious title contention right now. And they're going to be fun to watch. You know what? It's a good thing Texas beat USC back in 05 because now I can actually root for them and be like, and I can't be I don't have to be one of those fans like, you know what? I can't root for them because they beat us back in 05. Nope, didn't happen. So I can cheer for USC and feel good about it. Also, shout out to Lindell White. That's one of my favorite documentary moments when he gets all mad and goes, 9 out of 10 times we beat those guys from Texas. Well, you didn't when it mattered, so who cares?
Lindell White and you shouldn't get along anyway because remember he's a Titan and a USC Trojan.
I know it's a double whammy. I should like hate this guy's existence, but I don't hate anyone's existence. We're all people.
That got turned really fast.
We are all created equal, and Jesus loves us all.
Even when we're trash talking.
That is the best form of trash talk. Jesus loves you. Don't forget it, guys.
The Lord be with you.
But anyways, on to the number 1 team that benefited from the transfer portal, the Duke Blue Devils. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
It's Colorado. It's Colorado. It's Colorado. I think pretty sure anyone could have guessed Bronny James was going to go to USC, and anyone could have guessed Colorado was going to be number 1 on this list. Even Bean, who's now looking up, he wants something to say. You better not trash Deion Sanders, or you might sleep outside tonight.
No, I was going to compliment his fashion sense.
He really likes the cowboy hat.
I love cowboy hats, Father. Why don't you let me wear cowboy hats?
You never asked. Like, all you had to do was ask. It's like asking goes a long way, Bean.
Communication is hard for me. I'm only like 3 feet tall.
He expects me to like just know. He's not even that tall. He's like a foot long, dude.
I'm a $5 foot long, damn you. A $5 foot long.
He's like, how dare you put a price on me, Matt? Now he's coming for you.
Oh my God.
But anyways, now that we have 10 minutes to go, I better hurry up and get this explanation over with.
We know who it is. We know who it is.
We know it's Colorado, but no, I have to go into why they're number 1. They're on pace for the biggest roster turnover in college football history. But like, what amazes me is how many people are surprised by this. He literally in his opening press conference said, yeah, y'all go ahead and hit that portal. I got my bags coming and they all Louis. Like, did we think he was joking? Like, no, he was kind of serious. And what's also funny about this is maybe not to this degree, or maybe he wasn't as loud about it. But if y'all remember, Mel Tucker did the exact same thing at Michigan State.
Yep.
But no one hated on him for it because he wasn't as loud about it, maybe, or it's because it's Coach Prime and he has more attention, whatever. But at the time of this recording, 38 players have committed to Colorado. Of course, we've mentioned the 2 big ones, Travis Hunter, who I think is a pretty solid player, Shedeur Sanders, who I am going to be on record saying, mark my words, he is the 2nd best quarterback in the Pac-12, only behind the reigning Heisman winner, Caleb Williams, and I will stand by that. And of course, the sleeper ones are Demoy Kennedy, I hope I didn't butcher his name, from Bama, and Miles Slusher from Arkansas. Coach Prime has revamped this roster and could have what was arguably the worst team in Power 5 last year to ready to make some noise in year one, which people don't understand. Even in the transfer portal era, that's insane. It is absolutely insane. And then low key, though, just because of how much we talk about him, Matt, I think we might have to change our pod to the Colorado fan club. Low key.
Oh my gosh. We'll save that for when the season actually starts.
Well, so one more rundown before we get into our closing thoughts. Number 5 is Michigan. Number 4 is Louisville. Number 3 is LSU. Number 2 is USC. And number 1 is Colorado. Sko Buffs.
It's interesting too, Les, because like I was saying last week, Louisville is such an interesting team for me because I feel like they, in their first year, could easily win 7 or 8 games. Maybe even 9 if they get lucky and Plummer is really, really good. I mean, it's amazing how, like, the team was pretty good last year. It struggled a bit, then it rebounded, then made a bowl game, then won a bowl game. But even then, the fans weren't happy with the coach, even in spite of that. And now it feels like a team that was 500 has made like a complete 360, like they were 2-10 last season. And now it feels like it's a completely different feel around this Louisville team. But they really haven't had, other than like that 2 years ago, had a super duper down year. But I easily think Louisville could be the 4th best team in the ACC. I think they're behind Florida State and Clemson, and then your choice of either Duke or North Carolina. I'm
I was about to
leaning
say.
Duke. I'm leaning Duke because I think North Carolina has a good quarterback, but they're struggling in other areas. But then easily it's Louisville for me, ahead of Miami, ahead of North Carolina. I'm going to go with Louisville as like the 4th best team in
Did
that.
you say Clemson in there?
Yeah, Clemson. I said Clemson, Florida State, Duke probably better. Then
Okay.
Louisville, then Miami, North Carolina, maybe like a Pitt type thing. The ACC is always a weird conference because it starts out looking so bad, and then by midseason it's like, oh, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. So yeah, I think Louisville's definitely like in the top tier of the ACC now with all the transfer moves they've made. The other teams I expect to be there. I mean, Michigan I think will win. Michigan and Ohio State are going to be in a war of attrition to win the Big Ten again. LSU is going to probably win the SEC West. I think they can. I think they're better than Alabama this year. Colorado is the other weird one because it doesn't matter what happens with Colorado. It doesn't matter if they go 3-9 or 9-3. We're all going to have our eyeballs glued to the TV because this thing is going to be the most intriguing story of the year. Because, like you said, you just don't bring 38 guys in. Some like as recently as today, this late, and like kick out like and have 3 more enter the transfer portal at the same time, and just like not get all the eyeballs in the world on you. And I mean, you combine that with a guy who's a Pro Football Hall of Famer as your coach. It doesn't matter. Like we could enter mid October with them being like 1-5, and we're still gonna watch just because it's gonna be entertaining to see what the hell of this roster looks like at that point.
Well, not only that, I feel like if they start 1-5, we're going to be tuned in just to see that we were there for when we felt like Colorado made the turning point, when they finally did get things going. So, but yeah, I mean,
it's just going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, and kind of I want to talk about what you said about Louisville for a second. A little fun fact. Quarterback on the roster, Sam Young. I work with his dad at FedEx, and it was kind of funny to see Sam Young have to change his jersey number because Jack Plummer came in. That was interesting. But you know, Sam, if you're watching this podcast, you have a much cooler number now anyway at 18. So no one wants to be 13. 13's unlucky. 18 is actually cool. One of my favorite athlete of all time wore number 18, and I bet y'all can't guess who that is.
Tom Satch Sanders of the 1962 Boston Celtics.
Very good, man. I'm impressed.
I knew it.
But anyways, but no, also, yeah, Colorado is just on a different level. And you know, I'm gonna be honest, I watched a lot of Miles Slusher, especially a lot of tape on Miles Slusher, just because another transfer, you know, literally who played right beside him in the backfield, Jalen Catalon, he's going to Texas. So I watched a lot of clips just to see what kind of just to really get a feel of what kind of player Texas is getting. And then by committee, I was watching a lot of Miles Slusher. He's every bit as good too. So
Yeah,
that's an impact defensive player right away. And of course, like I said, Shador is the second best quarterback in the Pac-12. Mark my words. And of course, Travis Hunter, wherever you put him, he's going to be a star.
He really is. It's going to be interesting to see what he decides to play primarily as number one and how he makes that happen. I'm surprised we really haven't talked about them much, and I know we don't have much time, and I don't want to super get into it because the time will come. A team we haven't talked about that like everyone thinks is going to be good, and they did get a couple of big transfers. Most notably, Frentrell Cypress is Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of those teams where it's kind of like they're deceptively flying under the radar right now. It's by the fact that a lot of people have them highly ranked. So it'll be interesting to see, I think, like when we break down conferences eventually, what we think of them once I actually get a chance to look at their roster, assuming Colorado doesn't steal all of their defensive players.
Without giving away too much, because
Mhm.
I have a gut feeling that we're going to talk about Florida State plenty when we finally do our cap or no cap season preview that we do every year.
There will be much caps.
There will be a lot of caps.
There will be a lot of cap this season, I think.
I might even have to rock 2 hats for the show just to show how many caps there are going to be. Oh, I know. Kind of
The night of 1,000 caps will occur.
the man with many hats. Yes, but without giving away too much, I'm very high on Florida State. That's all I'm going to say. Without giving away too much.
At this point, I am too. So it'll be interesting to see if we're high on the same reasons. But yeah.
And just because I've complimented U of L, I'm going to have to bring Cards fans down just a notch. Just remember that Jordan Travis used to play for U of L.
Ooh, that's a low blow. That's a low blow.
Anyway,
how do you deal with yourself?
Well, I stay up all night and usually cry myself to sleep. So
okay, now we're getting depressy. We are not the depresses.
That's what it's like to be a Duke fan. That's what it's like to be a Duke fan in Kentucky.
I can imagine that. That's what it's just like as an Indiana fan every day.
Especially on football.
Yeah, I don't even think Indiana football's on. It is?
Oh, that's how we used to be until Mike Elko got there. Well, we had some good years with Coach Cutcliffe, but no, Mike Elko's got us definitely head in the right direction. But anyways, we are definitely running out of time. As always, like and subscribe to Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel. Tell us in the comment section below what you liked or didn't like about the episode. Who are your top 5 teams that benefited from the portal and top 5 players that moved? And also follow our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. And without further ado, Matt and I are officially out.
Have a good week, everyone.